NFC, baby. Did your team do well in free agency? We're here to discuss that and the draft implications going forward right here on Draft Nerds. As always, it's me, Jagger May, and that's Andrew Mott. Friday, we hit the AFC side of things. Now we're going to look at all the free agency moves. On the other side, we're going to start out with the Dallas Cowboys. Sam Howell, obviously backup money. Javonte Williams resigns a 3-year deal, which is significant. George Pickens gets the franchise tag, also significant. Matt Hennessy as center. DN Sam Williams re-signing a 1-year deal. Their big move is they got edge Rashawn Gary acquired in a trade with the Green Bay Packers in exchange for a 2027 fourth-round pick. That is a very good discount. D lineman Otito Ogbonia signs a 1-year, $3 million contract. Cornerback Kobe Durant signed a free agency deal for 1 year. And they got two safeties, Jalen Thompson on a 3-year deal with a maximum of $36 million, which is not so bad. They really needed help there. And then safety PJ Locke signs a 1-year, $5 million deal. They hammered at their biggest problem. They brought back a running back. They at least got George Pickens in for another year, which is almost better than having him signed because he can compete still and not just get lazy off a contract. Me and you've talked about that on a previous show we just did together. And then on top of that, they got a lot of defense.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to keep in mind, too, this was a team that was in on the Max Crosby sweepstakes, too, before that deal happened with Baltimore and then eventually fell out. This was one of the teams that I think a lot of people felt like there was going to be some ripple effects for because they made that Gary trade as a consolation prize because they missed out on Crosby. So it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to address this. I think this is a team that still could use another edge rusher. I think they could use a linebacker on this defense as well, and they could definitely be a team that looks at defensive tackle, too. Javonte Williams coming back, that's big for me on the offensive side of the ball because I thought he played really well. This was the best case scenario for Javonte. I thought it worked. Why not run it back? And they ended up getting the money that made it work overall. So this is definitely a team that still is probably going to need to go get some stuff at defense in the NFL draft. You could even use like a cornerback to replace the Trevon Diggs departure that they had earlier last offseason as well.
Trevon Diggs is borderline addition by subtraction, how poorly he played, but you are 100% correct. And they've made some moves where they traded away some other guys that it kind of feels a little bit like some cap movement there, where I don't think they're down and out on a Max Crosby deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if something gets done between now and the draft day, or we see a big draft day move. That would be very Jerry Jones-esque to make that type of move on draft day on TV for everyone to see. I am mocking defensive ends here until that, or edge rushers until then. And now that they got some safeties, I did have Dylan Thieneman going here, but I think they would go strictly more to the boundary, like you mentioned, to get Trevon Diggs out of here. Next, we move to the New York Giants. They signed a fullback, Patrick Ricard. Like I said, a lot of fullback movement. It's nuts. I haven't seen that in a long time. 2-year deal, wide receiver Calvin Austin, wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins. Both of these are, I'm assuming, 1-year deals. Darnell Mooney on a 1-year deal up to $10 million. Gunnar Olszewski, that's mainly special teams, on a deal. All boring. Isaiah Likely is the only one. Actually, I'll say Darnell Mooney might be a plus. We'll get to that in a minute. Isaiah Likely, 3-year, $40 million deal. O-lineman Jermaine Oluminor re-signed with the Giants. Evan Neal has the saddest contract known to man. We'll get to that in a second. Aaron Steeney re-signed with the Giants. Tremaine Edmonds, this is a good signing, signed a 3-year, $36 million deal with $23.7 million guaranteed. Linebacker Micah McFadden signed a 1-year deal. Greg Newsome to a 1-year deal. Safety Ardarius Washington on assuming a 1-year deal. A lot of these are kind of Band-Aid things, and I almost like that. They're not making crazy news yet. Any of these stick out to you as far as free agency deals?
Yeah, I mean, the wide receivers are intriguing, and I only say that because it feels like you have a bunch of guys coming in, but you don't really have the guy coming in to pair with Malik Neighbors. And so you have guys like Mooney, who, yes, could probably play outside, but he's done that for a couple of years across Drake London, and it didn't really work out for Atlanta. Like, he never was really a big contributor for them. And maybe, you are a team that ends up going and looking at a potential outside guy that can play a little bit bigger and play on that boundary and be a guy like that in the NFL draft. But I think also like this is gearing up for me to say they need to draft a guard in the NFL draft. They should be looking at a guard to keep Jackson Dart upright. They should also be looking at a cornerback in this draft class as well. So it's interesting because you got a lot of the wide receivers, but I don't feel like any of them, Calvin Austin or, the list of all of the names you said, Mooney, none of these guys feel like long-term answers.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely, I don't even feel good as him being like your number 2 guy. I feel like he had some really good opportunities in Baltimore, but ultimately I do still think this is a team that needs another wide receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if they go there at 5. Like you said, getting another lineman in general in here, the NFL needs it. This team needs it. I also think Sonny Styles would be a good fit here because Tremaine Edmonds is one thing, but getting someone else like Sonny Styles, and my big thing for him is you could use him a lot like Kyle Hamilton, except he's a linebacker with some safety capabilities and not just a safety who can do some linebacker stuff. I don't know if you've heard a lot of people starting to gather buzz that Jeremiah Love is a spot here.
I've heard it too. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, man. Like I know everybody's kind of trying to pinpoint Jeremiah in the top 10, and a lot of the teams that we thought that we were going to have, Kansas City, New Orleans, even to an extent, Washington, who just went out and got Rachaad White, and they got a couple other guys to come back as well. Like, are we really trying to force him into these landing spots where they clearly have 2 capable running backs? Scadaboo, I get it if he's, coming off the injury. Are people worried about him? The rumor right now is that he should be fine in the next 2 months. He should be ready to go, full go. I'll see what that actually turns into because we tend to be very optimistic on return timelines most of the time in NFL news. But I do think that this is a spot where it doesn't make sense for you to rip a top 5, top 7 pick on a guy like Jeremiah Love when you clearly have some other needs and you have capable running backs in your backfield.
Yeah, I will say that neither Cam Scadaboo nor who's the other scat back guy that they
Tyrone
have,
Tracy.
the wide receiver turned running back. It's eluded my mind. I'm sorry. It's
Tyrone Tracy.
Tyrone Tracy. Sorry. Yeah. Neither one of them would stop me from drafting Jeremiah Love, but like you said, I would just feel much better almost any other position. Besides maybe tight end, since you got Likely and you're picking at 5, any other position would be beneficial. Wide receiver, linebacker, maybe edge fair because you got a lot of edge players. So I wouldn't want that for them either. And like you said, when you look more at this receiving core, there's no one that can be a 2. And if you would get someone like Carnell Tate to go with Neighbors or Jordan Tyson, whoever, because Malik Neighbors is incredibly versatile, that everyone else looks better. Darnell Mooney as your 3 or Isaiah Likely as your 3, that seems a lot better than hey, we need you to go out there and be the second target. Don't really love that. Before we get to the rest of the NFC East, make sure to hit the like, subscribe button. You guys have been killer for us, and especially we're draft centric, so we're going to need your help, especially you fantasy folks that have come over here for Dynasty Nerds. And if you want to get in on all the fun, especially we're getting closer and closer to April, you guys want to go over and get into our prospect film room, especially if you're into fantasy, because we have a brand new revamped website for you that's easy to navigate, and it's all 22 film that's even condensed for you to get done, and dare I say 1 toilet visit. So hit the like, subscribe, make sure to go over and join the Nerd Herd. Philadelphia Eagles, they've made a lot of moves at tight end. That's all I could say. Grant Calcaterra resigned. To Dallas Goedert agreed on a 1-year deal that was basically the vet minimum with some incentives. Johnny Munt on a 1-year deal. Jordan Davis gets signed to a big $78 million extension. We'll talk about the implications of that. Linebacker Arnold Ebiketie signs a 1-year $7.3 million deal with $4.3 million guaranteed. Cornerback Jonathan Jones agrees to a 1-year deal. That's not bad at all. Cornerback Tariq Woolen signs a 1-year deal at the max value of $15 million. That's a very good prove-it deal. They got a really good player who had a down year and got outshined by some other guys. I love the bets there. Tight end, I was mocking a tight end in the second round, they still could do that. There seems to be a log jam. I don't know what they're going to do with A.J. Brown. Jordan Davis getting signed, and I don't know if you saw the big buzz from Ricky Scoops, but Jalen Carter could be on the move as well. What do you see with this team heading into the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of what you said about the tight end position too, because to me, it feels like we're band-aiding it at the moment in Philadelphia. Like, I think they would have liked to upgrade the position. Obviously, we saw a lot of the tight ends that were in the market either get tagged in Kyle Pitts or likely who are day one signs to, relationships that he's already built there when he was in Baltimore going over to the Giants. I think they would have liked to upgrade this position. It just didn't work out. And I think they're at a weird spot where you kind of don't feel like you can go get a Sadiq or something like that in the NFL draft with your first round pick. That would have been a really good fit for me. But I do think this is still a team that we could definitely see a Max Clare go day 2 to this team and be a potential long-term tight end for them as an option after Goddard potentially leaves there in next offseason. I also think this is a team where you could be looking at free safety. They just lost Blankenship. Blankenship could get replaced here. You could have a guy like, or you could replace the edge. You could go get a right guard here. Those are kind of the top needs for me, but they could go dip into the offensive line. They could go get a safety. Those are kind of all what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's the tight end that I had there was Eli Raridan in the second to fit into like the Dallas Goedert style. Good blocker, very good downfield, had a very solid relative athletic score. Edge is the big need because Jordan Phillips just signed with the Carolina Panthers, which we'll get to. But beyond
Nakobe
that,
Dean is out of there.
Yeah, Nakobe Dean's out of there. Nolan Smith hasn't quite developed into the frame. This is why I say when we chase pure athleticism, Nolan Smith's been fine, but he's not probably worth his draft capital where he was taken at the time. So I think that's a huge, huge need. I like Cassius Howell would be good. Malachi Lawrence, if he falls there, would be good. A lot of these guys that can stand up, not just pure hand in the ground edge rushers. But a tight end, like you said, man, they've been trying to be done with Dallas Goedert. Like if Kyle Pitts was available, they might have tried to talk to him because it would have been easier to deal A.J. Brown or something like that. Grant Calcaterra, come on. Johnny Munt, come on. Those are blockers. I'm not saying they're not useful from an NFL standpoint, but they've used Dallas Goedert as a de facto, to use the fantasy term, a handcuff. Anytime Devontae Smith or Brown has had injury or been out, Goddard's been able to step in as a quality target.
And he's been one of their go-to red zone guys too.
Mm-hmm. Even last year, he was better than Brown while he was out there.
Exactly.
I was like, it's almost disrespectful saying that he was a handcuff because last year A.J. Brown was almost.
Yeah, in the red zone, they were just looking Dallas Goedert. That's just what happened.
For sure. Next, we go down to the Washington Commanders. They re-sign Marcus Mariota. For a backup deal, I like that. Mariota was serviceable, fit the scheme. Jerome Ford, 1-year deal. Rashad White, I like this for White. I like this for the Commanders. De'Ami Brown comes back. Traylon Burks, they re-signed. Very interesting, very cost control. Van Jefferson, he's a body. Chigoziem Okonkwo, interesting fit. This is another a 3-year, $30 million contract. I'm sure that's a lot of incentive, and there's some outs in there. I love these low-cost budget, high-upside fits. Laramie Tunsil signs a 2-year, $60.2 million extension, including a $52.65 million guaranteed. That is hefty. Nick Allegretti signs a new 2-year deal. The offensive line is something they've really needed. Another O-lineman, Trent Scott, resigns. O-lineman Andre Wiley resigns. Edge Clavon Chason signs a 1-year, $12 million deal. Had a solid season with the Patriots. Sad to see him go. Charles Omenihu signs a $4 million deal with a maximum $7 million. Very good cost control deal. Odafe Owe on a 4-year, $100 million deal with $68 million guaranteed. Again, very much focused in on improving that defense. That kind of tells them where they're going in the draft. Edge Dedrick Wise signs a free agent deal. The D tackle Tim Settle, Leo Chenal, I think, is huge. He played really well for the Chiefs. Signs a three-year, $24.75 million deal. Cornerback Amik Robertson signs a 2-year, $60 million deal with 9.3 guaranteed. Nick Cross, another underrated deal, racks up a lot of tackles. A nice safety, signs a 2-year deal worth $14 million. A lot of defense, a lot of offensive line, a lot of back stock at wide receiver. We hope we're going to have a healthy Terry McLaurin throughout most of the year. They're going offense first round, right?
Yeah, I mean, I look at my team needs for them right now. I'm just going to list off the top 4 of them. Outside wide receiver, left guard, slot wide receiver, running back is still a need. I think Rachaad White is fine. I don't know if he's the starter. This doesn't take them out of Jeremiah Love potentially here at 7. They could also go a Carnell Tate. They could go a Jordan Tyson if they want to, a Mekhi Lemon. All of these are potential fits for them. And I think this is just a team that needs to go offense. They did sign, we didn't talk about it in that list, but they did sign Jerome Ford as well as a kind of special teamer, probably a 3rd string running back for them, coming over from Cleveland. But I think they're still in the Jeremiah sweepstakes. I think if I had to kind of peg a landing spot for him today, it would still be here at Washington. But this is a team that just needs to go grab a bunch of offense. And you probably need to go offensive skill players here in Washington too, if you want to keep building around Jaden Daniels.
That's exactly what I think here is that, like, Jeremiah Love, just take him. If you want him there, that's a plus upside player. Your offense is much better off than, let's say, like the Falcons were when Bijan signed, just because you have the quarterback. That has nothing to do with Drake London or Kyle Pitts or anything like that. You got your quarterback. He's going to be a weapon in the passing game just as much as in the running game. Or go get Carnell Tate to have with Terry McLaurin. And that makes Terry McLaurin could be a trade chip later if he doesn't show out. But you're hoping to compete right away, and you're just having a complement and a running mate there. And then it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that if you bring in someone like Tate or someone like Tyson, Lemon, all these other ones as like your 3rd target, like going back to the Giants. If Isaiah Likely's your 3rd target, that's better. If Chigakonko was your 3rd or 4th target, hey, that's not bad for upside. But if you're really counting on Chig, Traylon Burks, De'Ami Brown, Rachaad White to really step up as the 2nd playmaker beyond Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, that's not very good. And I do think getting Rachaad White and Jerome Ford, like you said, it makes them flexible to where they don't have to get Jeremiah Love. Like, running back isn't just depleted and they're fine. But and that's just like if the Giants get him ahead of time or someone trades up to where it's like, man, that sucks, but we can get Tater Tyson.
Yeah, and I think the Okonkwo signing is interesting, in my opinion. Like, I think you think of what Zach Ertz has done for this team over the last couple of years. He's floated across the middle of this football field. He's been a 100-plus target type of guy. Now, obviously, that has been like a lack of real solidified options. You've had kind of Deebo Samuel come in, who is not the same Deebo Samuel that we saw a couple of years ago, but he was still productive. A guy like Okonkwo is very intriguing, I think, for people in the fantasy space and for people just who are looking at receiving threats coming out of that tight end position. We talk about the move tight end and the traditional tight end that can, sit there and block. Okonkwo is not going to sit there and block for you, but he's going to go out there and route you up and catch probably 40, 50, 60 balls maybe this year, depending on the talent that they bring in across him.
Yeah, like if you get another outside receiver, Chig, Okonkwo, or like De'Ami, like that's going to help your slot in the algorithm. Like one of those guys I feel like can do that role well for Jaden Daniels. And again, if you get Jeremiah Love back there, you're going to be doing a lot of RPOs, and I think Love is going to be playing a lot of slot for you at that moment, because you're going to get a lot of that Christian McCaffrey usage. We go down to the Chicago Bears. They signed Case Keenum on a 2-year deal to be a high-end backup, actually. I think that's a solid backup to have. Khalif Raymond, boring, $5.1 million deal. Braxton Jones re-signs a 1-year contract. Jordan McFadden re-signs a 1-year contract. Jedrick Willis signs a 1-year deal, O-lineman. Garrett Bradbury traded for peanuts, and he played really terrible everywhere he's been. Edge Contavious Street signs a free agent deal. DN Daniel Hardy re-signs a 2-year contract. D lineman Neville Gallmore signs a 2-year deal. Devin Bush, interesting, 3-year, $30 million deal. Linebacker DeMarco Jackson resigns a 2-year, $7.5 million deal that has a maximum value of $10.5 million. Cornerback Cam Lewis signs a free agent deal. I'm assuming these ones that are free agent deals are like vet minimums. This is just from NFL.com for those curious. Kobe Bryant signed a 3-year, $40 million deal that includes 25.75 million guaranteed. That's pretty good to be across from Jalen Johnson. Elijah Hicks resigns a 1-year contract. They lost a lot of secondary help because Jaquan Brisker is out of there. They don't need any pass catchers. They don't need running back because running back is shallow. Everything else I think is still on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, strong safety is a need that I have for them immediately right now. So they could go get that. I think a defensive tackle is still in the play for them. Edge rushers, to me, the Chicago Bears, we know the offense is good. We love the offense. The offense performed great last year under Ben Johnson. We got to go replenish this defense. The defense still needs a little bit of work. And it was actually a pretty decent defense last year too. I think it played better in the back half of the year than it did in the beginning half of the year. But yeah, this is a team that needs to go defense in the NFL draft, I think, on the edge. But if you were going into the offensive side of the ball, it's probably later, day 3. And you could be looking at guys like maybe a third wide receiver. You mentioned Raymond is their wide receiver 3 at the moment. Probably doesn't get you super excited. And a guy to replace Dahlman. I know Bradbury is their replacement for the center, but you mentioned, the quiet part out loud. He hasn't played great anywhere, really. He had spurts in Jacksonville when he was starting, but I watched this man play for Minnesota for years, and he's not a good center, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's just if they're going to go offense, it's got to be on the line because Colston Loveland or Luther Burden or Roma Dunze, depending on the game, is your wide receiver 3. Then there's Cole Kmet afterwards. But you need to get either something up front or you need to defense, man, secondary. Like you said, defensive tackle would be good here. The only thing is defensive tackle gets thinner. I've been saying Peter Woods is overrated for a long time now. I've been saying, hey, I'm worried about Caleb Banks because his injuries and his weird lack of production, and that pops up. Kristen Miller is the only interior defensive lineman that I love in the first round. Caden McDonald is a run stuffer. I don't see a lot of pass rush there. So you would have to go, I think, take advantage of these safeties. Get Dylan Thieneman. If you don't like that, I like AJ Halsey from LSU. There's a lot of, this is the deepest safety class I've seen, which is crazy because safety's been a devalued position as of late, but just the upside and versatility. And I think guys like Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton, if you got someone that can be a elite game changer at safety, it's much different than if you're just your casual deep quarter guy, deep third guy. Next we go to Ben Johnson's old stomping grounds, the Detroit Lions. They re-signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 1-year, basically a vet minimum deal. I don't remember those numbers off the top of my head. Isaiah Pacheco, 1 year, $1.81 million deal. That's as vet minimum as it gets. Tight end Tyler Conklin, 1-year deal. Cade May signs a 3-year, $25 million deal. That's the best signing so far. They really needed to work on that interior. Offensive tackle Larry Borum signs a deal. Juice Scruggs, they got in a weird trade where they for a 4th and David Montgomery. That's fine. They needed depth. They didn't need David Montgomery. You could get Isaiah Pacheco to do less than David Montgomery, but get less carries for basically pennies. Rocky Sin re-signing a deal. And then safety, Christian Izien signs a 1-year deal. They need offensive line still, and I still think they need defense. So,
yeah, and Taylor Decker just retired, right? Taylor Decker's
the
one who
that's
retired.
a big one. Yeah.
So Taylor Decker's gone. I think you got to look left tackle, try and replace him, potentially on this offensive line. A guy off the edge to complement Aiden Hutchinson would be great. We've talked about on this show before, we don't want to play around in the Zadarius Smith type of complementary pieces anymore off that edge. So going to get an actual legit edge rusher, a linebacker, and you could see this be one of the teams potentially that does go out and grab one of these rookie running backs. We've talked a lot about there's not a lot of rookie running backs, and there's not a lot of great spots for these guys to go, but Pacheco should be fine. He's on a prove it deal. If you don't like what you have, like this might not be a bad spot for a guy like a Jonah Coleman or a guy like a Jadarian Price potentially to come in and sit behind those guys to potentially be the guy to take over as the number 2, because we know they like to run that 2-back system. I think Gibbs is going to have a little bit more work than he's had in recent years this year. We'll see how he holds up, but I could see them being one of the teams that goes in and gets a running back.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And Landon Jackson is someone that they drafted that I hope kind of takes a step forward next year, but still it wouldn't hurt if you got another lineman in this league, because like you can always scoot some of them in depending on your package, use all 3. And again, like you just had a guy retire on you. What really made this whole offense tick is, yes, Ben Johnson had a lot to do with that. Yes, you're very talented pass catchers, but they had one of the best offensive linemen for like 4 years, and that group is now split up. So very, very huge need. Now we go over to the Green Bay Packers, and they signed Sky Moore to a basically 1-year deal to return punts. Let's just say what it is. Sean Ryan, offensive lineman, signs a 3-year, $33 million deal with a max of $39 million. Javon Hargrave signs a 2-year, $23 million deal. Not so bad. They acquired Zaire Franklin, which I think is good because they just lost Quay Walker. And Zaire Franklin had a down year. So hopefully they're buying a discount and he can really take another step forward. Cornerback Benjamin St. Juste signs a 2-year, $10 million deal. They need everything and nothing. They don't need quarterback. Do they still need a wide receiver? I don't know. Is Christian Watkins healthy? That's the big question. Where do you think they go here?
This is a draft where it almost feels like they're going to be replenishing the cupboards. They lost Gary. They lost Elton Jenkins off that offensive line. They lost Quay Walker. You just mentioned it. Like, there's a lot of losses on this team that they're going to be going out and replacing. Hopefully they can find all of the replacements. I think you probably have to focus on some of the boring positions. This is a team that you mentioned maybe they go get a wide receiver. I don't think you should. I think you're fine where you're at. You drafted Matthew Golden last year. You better give him a bigger workload just to see what you got out of him right now, and go with Christian Watson and go with Jaden Reed out there. You have Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Your running back position with Josh Jacobs is fine. Maybe this is a team that's drafting a number 2 to come in behind him and, try and be out a little bit early on Jacobs, or at least have the replacement in the building earlier than Jacobs. This wouldn't be a bad spot to see a guy like, I just mentioned Jadarian Price and Jonah Coleman. This wouldn't be a bad spot to see them go here. Mike Washington is the number 2 behind Josh Jacobs. But at the end of the day, like, I have defensive tackle, that outside cornerback position, left tackle, edge, free safety. These are the positions that I think they need to fill. It's just all defense basically for the Packers.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jonah Coleman goes here, because he just kind of fits that play style of what the Packers seem to be okay with. He's not crazy athletic, but I think he just does his job well. He doesn't catch a lot of passes, which is maybe a concern, because they already have, is Jordan Mason still there?
No, Jordan Mason's in Minnesota, but you have Emmanuel Wilson.
Oh, excuse me, Minnesota. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Emmanuel Wilson just left. He went to the Seahawks, and Chris Brooks came back on a deal. Marshawn Lloyd has been sitting around on the IR for the last 3 seasons. They have nobody behind Jacobs unless you think Chris Brooks is that guy for him.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Emmanuel Wilson, they get a lot out of guys who aren't spectacular, and I think Jonah Coleman is better than those guys who aren't spectacular, and he could come in right away and play behind, play right behind Josh Jacobs, it's crazy. You think he's aging. He's still not quite as old as what everyone thinks, because everyone forgets he came into the league at 19 years old. Hey, he hasn't really slowed down from a production standpoint. We're all just kind of Derrick Henry him in a sense, in a very, very mini sense, because he's not like Derrick Henry level legend, but the edge hasn't come for the cliff yet, and I'm tired of waiting on it, because again, there's no one back there and at all, and there's no one in this draft class that I think is just gonna claw away anything from Josh Jacobs. If Jeremiah Love fell to the Packers, let's say there's a real scenario Jeremiah Love would fall to the Packers, they would have to take him, right?
Maybe. I mean, it would make a lot of sense for their scheme fit, but that would mean if he's going to the Packers, that means Jeremiah Love's falling past a lot of teams that would probably be licking their chops trying to draft Jeremiah.
I mean, you got to think about it. It'd be the Giants, it'd be Tennessee, the Giants, Washington at the beginning. Cincinnati, they are stupid enough to do that, but like they don't need him. The Rams don't need him. Baltimore don't need him. Tampa Bay doesn't need him. New York Jets, why did you sign Breece Hall back on it? Detroit doesn't. I guess Minnesota is where you get the first question mark there. Like Minnesota would take him. But if I'm a rival, if I see him drop that far, I'm just gonna try to trade up, and take him, like, because that would be an immediate boost. That's a weird scenario that I think it won't happen, but it's more likely to happen than what people think.
I agree with you. I think it's more like, don't hear what I'm not saying. I think Jeremiah Love in this class, he's a top 10 talent.
He's a top 10
5
pick.
talent. Like, he should be going there, but I think the way that this is filled out for these teams in free agency, I wouldn't be 100% shocked to see Jeremiah go 15. You know what I mean? Like, he's a guy that could slip just a little bit more than we think, only because we've seen these teams start to stack some of those running backs in free agency onto these rosters, and it might make them go a different position. You know, we've talked about the defense being a good part of this draft. Maybe teams just start stacking on that defense, and Jeremiah falls a little bit because of that. I don't think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. But it would be pretty crazy. And you said the Rams. Something tells me, like, I just have a feeling that, like, Sean McVay, if he saw Jeremiah Love on the board, he'd be like, do it. Just
buy Corum. Anybody want Corum? Like he'd be the manager as soon as he drafts one running back. He's putting Blake Corum on the trade block, or even Kyron Williams, you know, just because he's more expensive at that point.
And he's been doing it every year. They drafted Kyron, then they drafted Corum, then they drafted last year Jarquez Hunter, who they were in the draft room.
Shit, I forgot about Jarquez Hunter, man.
Sitting there high-fiving and hyping him up, talking about, oh, dude, I can't believe we got him. You're telling me they get a guy like Jeremiah Love that's on the clock for them. They're not going to be sitting there hooting and hollering. They're going to go crazy trying to grab him. And it would be insane if he was sitting there in that Rams scheme.
That'd be nuts, dog. Like I as someone, like, I was going back, and again, I always get mad we talk about fantasy here when we're a draft show, but I am going to talk about fantasy for a second. I've been going through my teams and, like, you know, moving things off the IR, dropping guys, and I was like, ooh, I've got 2 Jeremiah Love shares. You know, for those shares, the Rams is the ultimate. It's the ultimate landing spot. It's the ultimate landing spot for any position. Let's put it that way. Like, cause like if Ty Simpson would go to the Rams, I think there's arguments for long-term value. Ty Simpson having more than Fernando Mendoza. Like, I'm not saying that Ty Simpson is a better prospect than Mendoza right now. That is not true. But I'm saying if Ty Simpson goes to the Rams, I would not be surprised if Ty Simpson has a better career than Fernando Mendoza does as at the Raiders. We know what the Raiders do to everybody. We know what the Rams do for everybody, and those are opposite. So that's my point. And to bring everything back here, this is a good time to go to the Vikings, because like I said, the Vikings are another team. Like, dude, the Vikings, I actually, at 18, I don't hate the idea of them trading up to get Jeremiah Love. Do you?
No, I mean, I would love it as a fan to see them go up and get that. I think right now, to me, the biggest need for this team does feel like finding the replacement at safety. I think we still need safety help. Harrison Smith, we're still kind of sitting here waiting on figuring out the decision on whether or not he's going to be back. Linebacker could be a need. Eric Wilson just got re-signed for a second stint now with the Vikings. Edge, nose tackle, you heard about Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen and all these guys leaving. There's a lot of needs on that defensive side of the ball. So for me, as much as it would be really fun, and I think it would be incredible to see a guy like Jeremiah Love, who does end up landing in that that running back core, I do think you could see them go out and get defensive side on the ball.
And to emphasize your point, just like there's a reason why I kind of avoided like the free agency first here, is because your big one is just Kyler Murray on a vet minimum because he's still getting paid a lot of money. Aaron Jones, revisited his contract to stay on the team, so he's only making 5.5 million and staying in town. Eric Wilson, linebacker, re-signs a 3-year deal. James Pierre, cornerback, signs a 2-year deal, and then they re-sign a safety, Tavier Thomas, on a 1-year deal. Here's why you're all right on a safety, and I think you should. I think that is a problem. Safety is so damn deep, man. Like it is. Yeah. It is so deep. Second round, you can get a safety, and your needs on defensive tackle aren't in this draft class unless you get Kristen Miller. Which, if that's what you need, I do like him. Like I have a really solid grade on him. That is a first round grade. He's my number 1 D tackle, especially after the Caleb Banks stuff. Edge, I mean, you guys, who are your edge guys now? I know you guys got Dallas Turner. Who do you got opposite of him? I guess is it Van Ginkel?
And no, it's Van Ginkel and why am I spacing his name right now? Jonathan Grenard.
Jonathan Grenard, and you guys might be trading him, right? Trading him.
Yeah,
right?
he's supposedly available.
Mm-hmm. And then you drafted Dallas Turner, who came on towards the tail end of last season. So I don't think edge is pressing, because I do think that you're trading Jonathan Greener because Dallas Turner is doing a lot, and Van Ginkel is so versatile for you. So that's why I bring up, like, I don't think it's nuts if you would get someone like Jeremiah Love and just kind of go in on this offense. So,
dude, I mean, if you land a guy like Jeremiah, you have Kyler Murray, you have Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson and Addison, and the offensive line in Minnesota is good too. You probably got to figure out the replacement for Ryan Kelly, because Ryan Kelly just retired on us from the concussions that he's having. So you probably got to have a replacement there on the interior of the line. But then we're talking about one of like the top 5 to 7 offenses in football next year with all of those additions.
Mm-hmm. And right now, I think it's almost important to, you need to make the playoffs and you need to compete in the playoffs, but you do that with having an offense. You guys paid KOC for a reason. So, and
yeah, absolutely.
And you just want to see that. You want to see the fruits of the labor. So if you least made the playoffs, win one game, but your offense is like top 5, I think that you have won, and it's justified for you to pay or go up and get a literal generational back like Jeremiah Love. I've been the guy that says we shouldn't overuse that term. Jeremiah Love is that good, folks. He's that good. I didn't think Ashton Genty was worth generational. I thought he was definitely a blue chip, but not generational.
Yeah, and if we're talking about you as a blue chip at minimum, we're talking about you being pretty damn good.
Exactly. That's like, again, I don't think that these players are overrated. I think that we overuse the term generational is where I wanted to get at. Atlanta Falcons, Tua Tagovailoa signs a 1-year deal for peanuts. Wide receiver Jahan Dotson, I don't hate this at all. 2-year, $15 million deal with $10 million guaranteed. Olamide Zaccheaus, I think he comes back to Atlanta because he was there before he went to the Bears on a 1-year deal. Austin Hooper is basically a vet minimum, $3.25 million deal. They franchise tag Kyle Pitts. Edge Azeez Ojulari signs a 1-year contract. Huge need. Deshaun Hand signs a 1-year, $3 million contract. Cameron Thomas signs a free agent contract. A lot of edges, 3 in a row. Defensive tackle Laquelle London resigns with the Falcons. D lineman Chris Williams signs a 1-year deal. Linebacker Christian Harris, that's a solid signing on a 1-year deal worth $3 million. Good, at least run stuffer that you got for peanuts there. Let's just say the quiet part out loud. They spent money on edge. By money, I meant draft capital. They got 2 in the last year's draft. One of those, who had a 10.5 sack season, might never play football again, and James Pierce. I saw that they dropped the charge for him assaulting a cop because there wasn't enough evidence. I'm like, oh, maybe there's a chance. I saw that was like 1 of 4 charges that were awful. So
because there was a bunch of other laundry lists of items.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely think that James Pierce, how you're going to replace him, it's going to be really hard to do this late in that draft because you don't have a first-round pick. So, Atlanta, you're just kind of in prayer mode and pray for that offense to help.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the free agent signings are depth pieces and things as insurance policies for whatever happens with him. But let's also acknowledge the fact that this is a team that needs some wide receiver help outside of London, because you see Mooney, who leaves town. Behind him, I mean, we're talking about Ray McLeod as like the other guys that you really have. So we probably need to have a legitimate number 2 in here opposite Drake London.
Well, Kyle Pitts is a 2. I think it's firmly in this offense, but
that's fair. He's on the tag though. That's not a full term, long-term extension.
That's fair. Dotson, where are you on? Are you a Dotson truther, or are you just kind of out on him?
I liked Dotson when he was, back in Washington. I don't know what has happened to his career, because it seemed like it was very promising after his rookie season, and then everything has kind of just not worked out since then. I think he's another one of those guys where we said this with, Mooney, and we said this with Calvin Austin, we said this with some of the other guys. Like, if I can push him to my 3, feel really good about Dotson as my number 3. Him as my number 2, I'm starting to question whether or not, like, do we have enough firepower here? And you're not playing with quarterbacks that I can rely on to be game breakers or guys that can carry the load. Like, I'm talking about Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix in a quarterback battle of mid quarterback competition. Like, these guys need help around them to lead this team to keep going. And I guess Bijan Robinson is hopefully going to be that engine for you. But I think Tua is the upgrade a little bit on Penix. I haven't been a Penix fan. I think Tua is better than him. I think he's going to end up being the starter, but we still need to get another weapon out here, because I don't think Tua can really carry a load, although this is a little bit of a weaker division. So maybe that helps him, where he's not playing a Buffalo every couple of weeks, and he's not playing a guy in New England like Drake May every couple of weeks.
I do like Tua better than Penix. That's a low bar. And then again, you make the same bet that Dylan Gabriel looked competent at times. And I know that's not like a glowing review, but if Dylan Gabriel is like a way worse version of Tua, we might be able to get good QB play. They're going to be playing in a dome a lot. We know how soft that baby soft Tua is just all around. I think that's going to be helpful, but I do agree that you can look at wide receiver. I do think though, you might be able to get that wide receiver 2 in the 3rd round. And then at the 2nd round, get best player available that you can. And to be honest, that might be wide receiver, man, because they're not, their first draft pick is not until pick number 48. Like, it's not great. And then to be where you're at, you would hope that, you could get Tua in and you have James Pierce and you just feel really good about what you're rocking with. Going to the Carolina Panthers. Kenny Pickett backup deal. That's pretty solid. I feel much better about Bryce Young not getting pulled. Wide receiver John Mechie III rejoins his quarterback on a 1-year deal. Like that move. David Moore resigns. Stone Forsythe, offensive tackle, signs a 1-year deal. Rashad Walker signs a 1-year deal with a maximum value of $10 million, including incentives. Luke Fortner, a center, signs a 1-year deal. Devin Lloyd signs a 3-year, $45 million deal. I love this deal for defense. Jalen Phillips, 4-year deal, $120 million. He's the advanced stats king that doesn't always translate to tangible production. Isaiah Simmons seems to refound his career and resigns with the Panthers. So I love that he's kind of put it together here. Cornerback, a Caleb Evans resigns a 1-year deal. Nick Scott, safety, agrees to a 1-year deal. Them signing an edge and a linebacker makes them much more flexible in the 1st round because you can get offensive tackle. I think wide receiver, Jalen Coker and Leggett as 2 or 3, depending on the game, is fine. This seems like a really good Kenyon Sadiq spot, man.
Yes, this is one of the teams where I feel like the luxury of being able to go and grab one of the top receivers if you have them on the board, going out and grabbing a top, pass catcher in a guy like Sadiq would be great. This also is a team that I would not be surprised, Jagger, to see them be, taking phone calls to potentially move back. Like, they could be one of the ones that's just like, hey, we don't have like any real big needs, at least where we're picking at, where we kind of can just move back and just get a little bit of value and keep stacking this roster. And I agree with you. My biggest need for them is that tackle position. Getting another guy to help protect Bryce is going to be big for them. But other than that, you're right. Like, we're looking at premium picks, like a really good receiving tight end in Sadiq, or maybe a receiver here to replace a guy like Leggett on the outside.
Yeah, and it's Bryce Young has questions. we're going in, he's still going to have questions. They've played well in the playoffs, but the roster building standpoint from Dave Canales and this front office, you got to really applaud it. This looks like a real team, and they're going to go as far as their quarterback will take them. So I really like their moves here.
Let me ask you this too, because I think they have one of the more interesting backfields in football right now with Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks, who they drafted a couple of years ago, and obviously has been dealing with multiple ACL tears. And then you have Trevor Etienne. Is this a spot where we could see one of those running backs slip in and kind of replace Rico Dowdle in this offense?
Yeah, man. And this is another one where, do they feel good enough where they would want to trade up? Probably not, because you paid Chuba all that money. But like Jonah Coleman would be decent here. Mike Washington, actually, I don't hate that at all, just because he's got that receiving element that might be helpful. Offers you nothing in pass blocking yet, so he kind of would just be an offensive weapon specialist until that part of his game develops. So yeah, man, they're in a really good position just to go best available, and they don't feel the need to reach for some of these other like edge positions, offensive tackle as others, just because they're doing so well. Now, if offensive tackle falls to them or good O lineman, just take them. Like, don't be cute. We really need these in the NFL. Bryce needs it. So, New Orleans, you got to applaud Kellen Moore, what he's done with very little. And Tyler Shuck seems to be the guy that they're at least having confidence in the next year. Don't know if this is like a Davis Mills situation or Desmond Ridder, but we'll see. Running back Travis Etienne signs a 4-year, $52 million deal. A lot of that's guaranteed. One of the highest paid guys. Noah Fant, 2-year deal. Sneaky like it. I don't hate it. David Edwards signs a deal, which I like this signing, $15 million per season. I don't know how long that is. I need to go check that out. Dylan Radins signs a 2-year deal. John Ridgway re-signing a 2-year, $6.2 million deal. Linebacker Caden Ellis, another one I really like, signs a 3-year, $33 million deal with $23 million guaranteed. You got to think the Falcons are pissed that he goes to a rival just because he's been so productive here. New Orleans, I like wide receiver to go here early. I think that's a real position of need. And then just more help everywhere else in the trenches and defense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really everything that I have. Defensive tackle, I think a nose tackle specifically, edge rusher, having a guy out there at wide receiver. Like, these are the needs that I had. I also had a slot corner as one of my top 5 needs for them right now. But yeah, this feels like a team that now that ETN is signed, we're talking Tyson Tate right here at, pick 8.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I love Tyson here. I love Tate here. To me, those are both good compliments to Chris Olave. I wouldn't like Mekhi Lemon here because
it's not as good of a pairing.
Exactly. Because Chris Olave can play outside, but a lot better if you can move it from the slot inside and out. Whereas you want someone who can kind of live outside a little more often and then move if you need him or to get crazy, if that makes sense. When you get Mekhi Lemon and Chris Olave, it starts to feel crowded, in my opinion, as to where they're going to live out. But I like what Kellen Moore's done offensively. If anything, I just worry, are you going to start having the Kevin O'Connell problem with the Vikings, where you're going to coach yourself so well that when you need that quarterback upgrade, it's going to be really hard for you to get there because you can't ever draft a guy because you're playing so well. And again, that's just a big Tyler Shuck question.
Yeah, I mean, I have the exact same Shuck questions too. I think he played well enough. We'll see what year 2 brings, man. We'll see.
Yep. Moving to Tampa Bay. They bring in Jake Browning, backup deal. Obviously, running back Kenneth Gainwell comes in on a 2-year, $14 million contract. We know now that you can't really sleep on Gainwell, and they're going to give him touches. Tight end Ko Kieft signs a deal. I don't even know who that dude is. Tight end Cade Otton re-signed a 3-year deal worth $30 million. Very good deal for a guy who's been productive. Edge Al-Qaeda Muhammad signs a 1-year deal worth $6 million. Alshon Robinson signs a 1-year, $10 million deal. Not bad. I love the Anzalone signing for $17 million, and Miles Killebrew signs a deal. Not super splashy, really just kind of backstocking things. They still need defensive help at the same positions. Like, I still think you need edge. I still think you need cornerback. Every year, I feel like I've been saying that.
Yep. You just listed 2 of my 5 positions. I have edge outside corner, linebacker, defensive tackle. And if you want to get fancy, I think this is less of a need, but it's still something I'll bring up. Do you want to replace the X wide receiver outside from Mike Evans? Do you want to, potentially do that? I think Ibuka is going to see a bigger role. I think he's going to work a little bit more deep downfield this year, but you have Jalen McMillan as well. It's not a need, but it's something that I could see them going out and finding an X later in the draft. Do they like a Jacoby Lane? Do they like a Denzel Boston? Do they like – those guys might go a little bit too high for where they're going to be, but there's some X's of Malachi Fields that they might, end up looking at and saying, why not bring him in and see what we can have?
Yeah, and if you do that and let's say Jacoby Lane falls in your pocket in the third round, do that, or something like that. Go ahead and make that deal. These first 2 picks, you already gave yourself the luxury with the Mecca Egbuka. Jalen McMillan was productive when he was out there. That's why you felt
I like McMillan. I like him a lot.
Yeah, and then you have Chris Godwin, who's still been productive when he's there. Fix your defense, man. Take some pressure off Baker Mayfield and this offense. Arizona Cardinals. They bring in Gardner Minshew, and they pretty much said they're rolling with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback. That's a choice. Tyler Algier. Yeah. Tyler Algier comes in on a 2-year, $12 million deal. Kendrick Bourne signs a 2-year, $10 million deal with a max value of $12 million. Wide receiver Semi Fehoko, didn't even know he was still in the league. Re-signs with the Cardinals. Offensive guard Matt Pryor signs a 1-year deal. Isaac Suomelo signs a 3-year, $31.5 million contract. That's a good signing. Elijah Wilkinson signs a 2-year contract. D lineman LJ Collier re-signs a 1-year, $2 million deal with a maximum value of $2.5 million. Roy Lopez signs a 2-year, $11.5 million deal with $7 million guaranteed, and D lineman Jonah Williams signs a 1-year deal. They are going to be taking David Bailey or Arvell Reese. I have a hard time seeing them go anywhere else, and they are still in best available mode besides maybe wide receiver. That's about a tight end. You don't need pass catchers. Running back, I don't know, man. Trey Benson, shadow realm forever, it feels like. But defense, you need help. Offensive line, you need help.
Agreed, 100%. It's you take the best players because this is a rebuild, man. This is going to be a tough process for Arizona. I could definitely see this. The reason why I say short is with Jacoby is this could definitely be the Ty Simpson spot. This could definitely be the Garrett Nussmeier spot, or one of these guys where they end up taking even a Carson Beck and rolling out and seeing could we get something out of this guy in the short term, because we don't want to go with a Brissett and we don't want to go with a Gardner Minshew, long term at this quarterback position. At least give us some upside, because we know what Brissett and Minshew are. And so I could see them being a team that takes one of these quarterbacks in this draft class. Other than that, linebacker, safety, right tackle, all of these things. But the clear and obvious thing for me right now is with them in the first round, you take the best guy there, whoever it is, it doesn't matter the position, and just keep getting playmakers, man, on this team, both sides of the ball, because you need them.
Yep, you need them. And you get guys that are going to be on your team for the long haul. Don't really worry about positional value, because you're playing for a quarterback next season that you hope comes in and becomes a guy. And if you get Drew Allar or Beck, any of the guys that you mentioned or something like that, then they pan out. Cool. Los Angeles Rams, they re-signed Tyler Higbee to a 2-year deal worth up to $8 million. I don't know why. Offensive tackle David Questenberry re-signs a 1-year contract. They, in a big trade, get Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs in exchange for one of their firsts, because they had to. Pick number 29, a 5th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. So, as well as a 27th third-rounder. So the Chiefs get a haul, basically. And then McDuffie immediately signs a 4-year, $124 million extension. Cornerback Jalen Watson comes in on a 3-year deal worth $51 million, $34 guaranteed. They really, really spit on their secondary, because they re-signed Cameron Curl, who's been really productive for them. So they what their need was. And in this draft, that means that they're really in best available mode, because they already had a really good front seven. So you have a 1st-round pick that's early. You still have your 2nd. Man, just get Ty Simpson. And if he sucks, he sucks, man. And I know that's hard to say, but you're in position to develop him.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. This is This is one of the teams that doesn't really have a true need. We could sit there and name positions where it's like, yeah, we could maybe see an upgrade here, but there's no real need. And so you and I have talked about this before, and we've talked about this on the show before, where it's like the Rams are not a football team that is going to be in position to be drafting in the top, 13, 14 picks again in the near future. So if this is a team that we're expecting to be a Super Bowl favorite or one of the top, Super Bowl contending teams in the league for the next year or two, as long as Matthew Stafford still decides to play quarterback for this team, when are you going to get a shot at a QB again? It's just not likely. And so being able to go out and grab a guy at the top, of this round, or I guess in the middle of the round of the first round, and Simpson, I'm all for it, man. I don't think there's any real risk there. I get it. You lose the first round pick. This was kind of a gifted first round pick anyways, coming from Atlanta. We're playing with house money, man. Like, you might as well use it.
Yeah, the only reason why they would be picking this high next year is if Matt Stafford gets hurt. If you sign someone like Ty Simpson, that is very, very good insurance for you. And again, you don't want Matt Stafford to get hurt. You want him to get you to the Super Bowl. But you can iron out a lot of those Ty Simpson things and relieve the pressure of having to throw him out there right away.
Well, and keep in mind, too, this is one of the teams that was having conversations with Kyler Murray. I don't know if a lot of people picked up that as that came through.
I actually did not.
Kyler Murray had basically said that he was looking at some starting opportunities and then some opportunities where he could sit on the bench for 1 year and potentially be the starter in 2027. What of those teams would give him that opportunity? And the Rams was one of those options where it's like you could sit under Matthew Stafford for a season on that vet minimum and maybe be the starting quarterback for the Rams in 2027 if Stafford hangs it up. So this is a team that I think has been kind of doing some due diligence at that quarterback position, just saying like, hey, we do need to kind of prepare for life after Stafford. And so I definitely am not going to be shocked to see them go quarterback in this draft.
Spicy stuff there. I did not know about Kyler Murray. So yeah, to me, there's just more steam, it's just a really good bet. San Francisco 49ers, their big one, they re-signed Mike Evans to a 3-year deal, which I remember seeing the math. Someone had it out. There's a lot of outs. It's basically 3 1-year deals, essentially, that they can reevaluate.
It's 1 year you play well, you can have the second. If you play well again, you can have the third.
Like, yeah, exactly. That's really good bet, I think, for where they're at as a team and all the struggles that they've had to get Ricky Pearsall healthy. And I don't know if Mike Evans is I don't know if Brandon Ayuk's even a real person anymore. Offensive tackle Verdarian Lowe signed a 2-year deal worth $12 million with $5.75 million guaranteed. Offensive tackle Brett Toth signs a 1-year deal. Both of those are huge needs, and I still think they should go offensive lineman. D lineman Kaya Davis signs a deal. D tackle Osa. God, some of these are tough. Odigizua acquired in a trade with Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 2026 third-round pick. Luke Gilford signs a 2-year deal. Very cheap, $5.3 million contract. Dre Greenlaw comes back on a 1-year deal, which is huge. Cornerback Nate Hobbs comes on a 1-year deal. They don't need a pass catcher this high. They don't need a running back. Everything else, I feel like, is on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a team for me where it's a solid offensive line draft. I'm not opposed to replenishing a little bit of this offensive line. Two of the 5 needs that I have listed for them are left guard and center. So looking at that interior, this offensive line could use some improvement. Keep in mind too, Jagger, we've had a lot of rumors about Trent Williams and his contract and potential movement there and things that are kind of tension between Williams and the Niners at the moment. So If you lose him, we're talking about your needs being left tackle, left guard, and center. That's all Brock Purdy's blind side, man. We need to get a bunch of guys in here to keep blocking for him.
Yeah, and that's like in my mock that I went over with Garret last Wednesday. I had the Cowboys trading back and the 49ers being someone that's like, hey, we like Malagoa. He could play outside or guard. We need both. Let's just get this guy who would come in and improve an offensive lineman, because they can't afford to fuck around. You got a competitive roster. You just paid a quarterback. You just paid Mike Evans. You need to fix your engine of your offense. Defense as well. They've been banged up, and they're bringing in kind of their old cats who've been banged up, like Dre Greenlaw and whatnot. So they could get it together, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have to settle and get another edge, just because Nick Bosa has basically been the only huge plus player on that defense in a while. We'll finish it off with the Seattle Seahawks. Running back Emmanuel Wilson, that's where he went to. Signs a 1-year deal worth $2.1 million. Rashid Shaheed signs a 3-year deal worth $51 million. That's a biggie there. Josh Jones re-signs a 1-year deal. Joshua, and that's offensive tackle Josh Jones. Cornerback Josh Joby re-signed a 3-year, $24 million deal worth $14.25 guaranteed and a maximum value of $24.75 million. So he can get like an extra $750,000. Safety Rodney Thomas re-signs a deal as well. I do think they might need to replace Tariq Woolen. That's a big need. Their secondary is kind of amoeba-ish, but this is a solid roster. They're best available as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Super Bowl winning roster. Like, this is a team that should be fine. The defense has been good. I think you're right. Replace Woolen. You could probably use another linebacker too, because they just lost what's his name? I can't remember. They just lost a linebacker there in Seattle. But then I think as far as the other side of the ball goes, like, keep going offensive line, build in the trenches. And I've said it for a couple of teams, and the reason why I keep bringing it up is there's just not many places where a lot of these running backs get you real excited. But this is another spot with Kenneth Walker now out of town. We can go a guy like Mike Washington. We can go a guy like Jonah Coleman. We can go a guy like Jadarian Price, and you can have a running back here that actually is going to be meaningful for the NFL roster.
Yeah, this is 100% Jonah Coleman, Mike Washington territory in the second round. Like, I think if any of whoever we think our favorite RB2 is in this class, this is where they're going to go. This is the team. Because Jadarian Price, up until his physical measurements came in, and granted, some of these guys are cutting weight so they can look lighter, run faster, whatever. My big comp for him was Kenneth Walker, because Kenneth Walker didn't have a lot of receiving upside in his profile when he came in either. Kenneth Walker, very shifty, very good, getting north and south, almost borderline kick returner at the time. It just really, really fit as far as a system. So I could see Price going here. I could see Mike Washington going here. I could see Jonah Coleman, because keep in mind, Charbonnet is going to be out for a long time. This team needs a running back, and this would be nuts, and I don't see it happening. If any team needed to trade up for Jeremiah Love because you have a competitive team right now, you run through the running back position, it would be the Seahawks. But all the way back from 32, what would you have to give up?
That's a far move. That's a far move, and that costs a lot of money.
A lot of money. That's like the Vikings. I wouldn't let that happen. That, like, to me, that's like, fuck you, and I want this guy. It's like, fuck you, I don't want you to have him, and I want him on top of that too. I don't see it happening, man. That's really unfortunate that they need a running back now in this draft class.
It is, but you know what? Like, I think you look at the Emmanuel Wilson signing, and a lot of people I know are excited about that to an extent, because Emmanuel Wilson's played fine when, Jacobs has been banged up, but they paid him $2 million, bro. That is backup money. If anybody is looking at money, like, that is backup money, dude.
Backup money, dog. It's pennies.
Yes. So, we're looking at probably them going with, when Charbonnet is healthy, whether that be midseason or whatever, he's probably the guy that they want to lean on just based off of the relationship with the staff. But then you're probably going a rookie as RB2 and then Wilson as RB3, but you're looking at, Emmanuel Wilson and that rookie as your short-term answers while you're waiting on Sharp to get healthy.
Yeah, and then some of these earlier teams that we talked about that could be taking a running back, let's say if Tennessee would take him or something like that, you'd have to think that Tajay Spears or Pollard would be on the trade block. You could make a move and trade for them pretty cheap. That's about it. Everyone else is just said, "Hey, we like this guy and the guys that we have. Sucks for you, Seattle. Womp womp." That's like, it's just, running back is weird. I've never seen it so thin before in my career. So, well, that'll do it, folks. We hit AFC last Friday. So if you see this video and you want to wait to talk about your team, chances are we talked about them on Friday. Wednesday, we'll have a new show as well. Same thing with Friday here. As always, it's me, Jagger May. That's Andrew Mott. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.